Hello and welcome back, everyone, to Immigration and Jobs Talk Show. Very happy to have you here. I'm Nipasa Pradhan, and before we dive into today's topic and with our special guest for tonight, I really wanted to tell you that by watching our videos, you agree and understand that the information provided by our experts and attorneys, including comments and replies from users, is not legal advice. So, use of information is at your own risk. So, wherever you're joining us from, a very good morning, good afternoon, and good day. Let's start off, and thank you so much for joining us. We are streaming live on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, and even Twitter. So, if you have any questions to the attorney directly, we can take up in our show today. I'm going to be with you for the next hour, and we are going to be joined by a very special guest, a very familiar face who makes sure to join us almost every week. So, please help me welcome back none other than attorney Prashanthi Reddy once again, who is an expert in immigration law and has been practicing for over 2 decades now. So, welcome back, Prashanthi. Thank you so much for joining us. And how are you doing today?
I'm good, Nipasa. Thanks for having me back. It's always a pleasure to be on this show. And, we get so many interesting questions every week. So it's a pleasure, being on the show and answering all those, interesting and thought-provoking questions.
Absolutely. It's always an exciting webinar with you. So, hoping for a good one today as well. So, wherever you're joining us from, don't forget to tell us which city or state you are joining us from, because that way we are able to give you even better answers. So, if you have any questions, drop them in the comments. And if you're watching after the live stream, also you can drop your questions because we are very happy to answer them. So, here we are today with Prashanthi Reddy, and today's topic, for discussion is future of skilled immigration, and we are going to explore the forthcoming trends and prospects for skilled immigration in the United States. So, Prashanthi, if you could probably give a gist, to folks out there who have joined us, what can they expect from us today in this episode?
Well, in this episode, of course, the most important thing is we'll be answering your questions. So please make sure you have a lot of questions in the chat box. We'll also, answer some frequently asked questions on the topic skilled immigration, and just to talk about what's happening with mostly Indian nationals, more so because they have more of a problem than skilled immigrants from other nationalities, simply because of the backlog, the green card backlog, the whole issue with the limited H-1B numbers, which every national has. Um, so we're going to talk about that a little bit, and we're going to be answering some interesting questions which Nipasa will ask.
Absolutely, absolutely. And talking about backlogs, I mean, even Amazon, I mean, these huge, huge names already with the backlogs and pauses, they're not giving green cards. What do you even have to say about that, Prashanthi?
Well, the job situation, especially in the IT sector, has been fluid in the last year as well as beginning of this year. We have to wait and see what it looks like the rest of the year. The thing with the IT industry is, and as a lot of skilled immigrants are from the IT industry, and that's why we're talking about the IT industry. The thing with it is that they don't follow the regular path. If all the other industries are doing a certain way, then the IT industry will, follow its own path. So while the economy has generally been great, the IT industry, we've seen a lot of layoffs, and therefore a lot of skilled immigrants for people who are on a H1 have been affected by these layoffs over the months. And luckily, we do have something called a 60-day grace period, which USCIS has. And, this is the best time to use that if you have that, if you've been laid off and you then have 60 days grace to, find your new job. Otherwise, you could always file a change of status. So there are a lot of there are at least some things that you can do if you're laid off. With reference to green cards, the layoffs are difficult for green card people who are filing green cards as well, because depending on where your case is, if you're filing a labor cert and if it's the case is stuck with the labor department, then you'll have to refile your case again with your new employer, because the employer that laid you off will most probably withdraw your case, so you'll have to start the process all over again. If you have an I-140 approved, then you're not as bad because at least you have a priority date now with a approved I-140. And when you get your next job, you could always go through the labor cert process and the I-140 process, and
Mhm.
then keep the same priority date. So just keep your same place in line as it may be. So that's something with reference to what you can do if you're laid off. Like you were saying, Amazon and Google and most other big names have laid off either last year or this year.
Yep.
So let's see what happens in the future, whether there'll be more layoffs or the market will stabilize.
Right, friends. So you'll just have to stay with us as we, dive deeper into this topic today. And we're going to have so many of your questions also answered. Thank you so much for joining. I can already see some folks out there, dropping in questions. So a big hello to Sankeeth on YouTube. We are going to take up your questions. Stay with us. Also, Nancy on YouTube. Stay with us. We'll be very happy to take them. And hello to Shikha Gupta on LinkedIn as well. Stay with us. We are sure going to take up your questions. Neha, hi, thank you for joining. So today, friends, we are discussing about future of skilled immigration. I know maybe looking a little hazy, especially for Indian folks out there, but not to worry. We are just going to get more solutions, maybe, hopefully, at least by the end of this hour, you feel more confident. So let's move ahead, and I got this question for you, Prashanthi. If you could clear out, what are the current trends in skilled immigration to in the United States, and how have they evolved in the recent years?
The current trend is backlog, 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 and it's evolved in the sense that, during COVID, we saw some respite with reference to the backlog, and we saw that the numbers moved forward very rapidly for EB2 and EB3 and EB1 categories were current for Indian nationals and the rest of the world as well. We are focusing more on Indian nationals because that's where the backlog is, Indian nationals and Chinese nationals. But for
Right.
Indian nationals, it's the worst, right? So we're focusing on that sector of people. I think we should do that in the show. So during COVID, we saw that the EB2 and EB3 numbers moved forward a little bit, and EB1 was current even before COVID and then continued to be current during COVID as well. Now that, and the reason that that happened is because the consulates abroad, they were not processing any green card cases. So the numbers were not being used by the consulates. Um, and so we had a lot of numbers available. So because those people who were filing for green cards from outside the country were not, able to use those numbers, they were not able to file or process their case because the consulates were closed. So we saw a lot of numbers of become available for all categories, and they trickle down to all categories, EB2, EB3 as well. And Indian nationals got no more numbers as well, because if they're unused numbers, then they'll, they usually add them to the numbers that where there is more demand, right? So a lot of people filed their green cards in October 2020. That's when the numbers became available. That's when the fiscal year starts. And then subsequently, after COVID, so 2020, 21, 22, we still continue to see availability of numbers, but it decreased as time passed. And now I think we're back to square one. We're back to pre-COVID availability. And so we only have a limited availability of a few 100,000 applications for the green card, and 7% of those applications are divided among, each country gets 7% of those applications. So we are again seeing a backlog with EB2, EB3, and EB1 is no longer current. So that's the current status with reference to the green cards. I think with reference to H1s, the numbers were just out. I should have had them handy, but they're about 420,000, I believe, and don't quote me on it, but around that. H1B numbers were announced yesterday, and so
Oh,
they have said that that many people have filed, 400 plus thousand people have filed, and they have selected about 120,000, I believe. And again, don't quote me on the
mm,
exact numbers because I don't have the numbers right here, but about around 100 plus, 100,000 plus um, numbers were selected. And as we know, 85,000 numbers are available. And they usually select more than are available because they expect, a few people will not file. So those numbers just came out yesterday. That means that about 20% of the cases were selected. That's the pick rate for this year, 20%. So because if you just count 100,000 versus 400,000 applications that were actually filed, it's about 20% pick rate, one fourth. Thanks, Sushant. You said 470,000. That's the correct number? Thank you for giving us the number. So with reference to the H-1B numbers, um, the demand is strong. The numbers are similar to what we saw last year. Um, and so that shows that, we continue to have a strong demand for skilled immigrants in the United States, and this should lead to the some legislation at least, which would increase the number of H1B availability, or at least try to provide some other relief for people who are not able to get into the H1, even though they have been trying for several years, especially those people who are presently in the US on an F1 status. Their F1 will expire if they're not able to transition to a H1, and then they'll have to either go back to school or leave the country. So I think for at least those students, they should provide some kind of a relief. The STEM OPT that is provided is for 2 years plus 1 year post completion OPT. So they get 3 years to try for the lottery, but sometimes that 3 years is not enough. So I think definitely some legislation should happen. We've been waiting for it for a while, and nothing has happened simply because of the divide in the legislature, and the Republican and the Democratic Party not being able to get along and pass any legislation together. So let's see what happens in the future. But we see that there's still a strong demand for skilled immigrants from the number of registrations that were filed this year.
Absolutely. I think we should always keep our hopes up, and folks out there, stay positive. Let's hope that we still have more. I mean, the second round of lottery, even possible. Anyway, since
Yeah, of
we've
course. Yeah.
already, yeah, let's take up Shushant. I mean, thank you, Shushant, also from my side. So if that's the number, that is. And he's got some questions. I think, Prashanthi, let's just address them and then we'll continue with the other questions. So Shushant is saying that I am an employer. Is it okay to use the client letter got through another IT staffing company as a sub vendor for one of my H1B cap selected candidate for H1B petition? There's a continuation
Yes.
asking
Yeah.
what, okay, what if client situation change later and deny job in October? And what if yeah, that's the question.
So as long as there is a job available, it doesn't matter who's giving you the letter. First of all, Sushant, you don't need a client letter. All you need is a PO, maybe, and an MSA. So what is important is that there is a job available, whether it be with another consulting company, then you have to show what that um, other consulting company, are they going to be sending that person to another client? Is this consulting company just a vendor? If that is so, then that's believable and it's fine. If things change, as you were mentioning, that they might change in October, we never know, right? Because projects are available, and then 6 months later they may not be available because that's the amount of time it takes for the person to actually get on a H1. So as long as it was a bona fide job that was available at the time that you were filing, if it becomes unavailable later after approval, as long as you continue to employ them, and if there is a change in work location, you file an amendment, it should be fine. But if there is a question from USCIS as to, I mean, there could be an FDNS visit, right? After H1B gets approved, we've seen that there are FDNS visits. So if there is an FDNS visit, then you have to explain to the officer that there was a bona fide job, and you have to show them proof that there was a bona fide job. And as long as they're convinced of that, and they don't think that you're filing a frivolous application, there should not be an issue with, changing the job after approval.
Okay, thank you so much, Prashanthi, for taking that up. And Sushant, thank you so much for your question as well. Stay with us. If you have any further questions, we are here to answer your questions. And this goes to all folks out there, wherever you have joined us from. Also, tell us where you are shooting your questions from so that, we have more precise answers for you. So let's move on, Prashanthi. I have another question for you. And that is, with the new administration in place, what changes or reforms can we expect in the skilled immigration policies?
Well, we don't really have a new administration in place. We might expect one I mean, this coming election, right? We don't know who will win,
Yes.
but if there is a new administration in place, and if it is a Republican administration, then we can expect that they will crack down on immigration, both unlawful immigration as well as lawful immigration. So they
Okay.
will crack down on asylum, which is actually a lawful way for a person to come in. They'll, of course, crack down on the border and make sure that the border, they're not allowing as many people in, which I think the present government is also doing because no one can have open borders. It doesn't work. But they'll also crack down on legal immigration. So you might find that H-1Bs will become harder to be approved. The laws won't change because it's difficult to change an actual law because they need majority vote. And we've seen the last few years that no one has had a clear majority, or even if they have, it's been for a very short period of time. So no immigration reform has taken place because of that. Um, but we will see that USCIS will start interpreting the law differently. They always do that as a loophole because the law can't be changed. They start interpreting it differently, and they start interpreting it in a more strict manner, and therefore we see a lot more RFEs, denials, shortened approval time. So if you ask for 3 years, you might get it for 1 year, right? So we can expect more of that and more denials and more RFEs. Um, Last time the Republican administration came in, they used the employer-employee relationship rule, which USCIS came up with, um, to deny cases. So they're always coming up with innovative ways of denying cases without actually changing the law. But now I think people are have realized that they can go to court, and then there is another body that is above the USCIS, and so that has really helped the immigrant community and businesses. The judiciary has helped clarify the law, strike down rules that USCIS makes up if they are against the law. So all is not lost, even if a more strict interpretation is given of the law. We can always go to court. But that's what we can expect if there is a new administration, a stricter interpretation of the law and more denials.
Okay. Thank you so much for clearing that out for us, Prashanthi. And since we're already talking about it, about the legislative proposals, and if you can tell us how these recent executive orders and legislative proposals also affect the skilled immigration, particularly in terms of visa categories and even eligibility criteria.
So, as of now, there is really nothing that has been, um, no law that has been passed. So there's no new law to talk about. There are a lot of pending legislatures. We have the Eagle Act. We have a lot going on there. Every year they have, proposed, right, legislations which ask for the increase of the green card numbers, ask for increase in H-1B cap numbers, but it doesn't actually happen. So this year is the same. Um, the only new legislation that we saw was with executive order, not even a legislation. So it's an executive order that's signed by the president, was with reference to AI. And
Right.
they have asked USCIS to look into what possible ways they are to bring people who have AI expertise into the US and to make it
Right.
easier to bring for people to come in through either the existing routes or creating new routes. We have not heard yet as to
Yeah.
nothing has come out on it. USCIS has not come up with any document to that effect. So we're waiting to see what happens moving
for
forward.
the approval. You're right. And then I think it was something about like it doesn't matter if you don't have a degree if you have the skills for AI and stuff. Is it that what you're talking about?
Yeah, so that was the executive order, and there were several things in it. And basically, the White House was asking USCIS to come up with ways of doing it and present a document to the president so that this can
Hmm.
happen. But it hasn't happened yet, so we're waiting to see where we are with that. There's also some proposed
Right.
regulation um, that hasn't come out as yet. I mean, it's still a proposed regulation. So if it is actually finalized as a law, then um, we know that there will be several changes to the H-1B program as well.
Right. And we're looking forward so that I hope folks out there can have more opportunities. That's what we all hope for. So let's hope for the best, Prashanthi.
Yes,
All right, let's
absolutely.
take up few viewer questions. Okay. Let's go to Shikha Gupta on LinkedIn asking, "Hello, Prashanthi. Good morning. I am a software developer. As per the current market scenario, most of the companies are not sponsoring the candidates. Is it better to move to H4 EAD or stay in H1B visa? And is there any foreseen risk to move to H4 EAD? Sorry, it's not showing complete from H1B. So benefits of H1B over H4 EAD. That's what she wants to know.
Before that, let me just, I have pulled up the numbers here because I was just curious myself with reference
Cool.
to, and this is like an update that's important, I think, that we should give everyone.
Right.
So basically, there have been 114,000 selections, 114,017 um, lottery selections. Um, and so the 114,000 beneficiaries have been selected, I must say, but that's resulted in a selection of 120,603 registrations because remember, some beneficiaries also file duplicate registrations. So if they file two or three, then that's each one is counted as one. So if you count it that way, then it's 120,603 numbers that were selected. If you count just the single ones, uh, just the number of beneficiaries, it's 114,000. And the number of registrations um, is, the unique one. So the single one is about 442,000 compared to 446,000 last year. So that's the number of single registrations this year. And that's the number to keep in mind. As Satish said, 470,000 is the number of total registrations, but if you remove the duplicates, it's 442,000. So very, very close to 446,000, which were the single registrations last year.
Mhm.
So we can see that there is still quite a lot of demand for H-1Bs. If you look at it, the number of registrations the year before, 2023, it was 309,000. So before that, it was 350,000, 309,000, 211,000, 241,000. So you see, it's increasing over the years. And I thought it would be a little less this year because of no duplicates, but it's pretty much the same as last year. It's almost the same as last year. So something to keep in mind with reference to the numbers. Let's go back to that question.
Cool. So the question is, basically, she wants to know what are the benefits of H1B over H4 EAD so that she knows what to do because
Well,
yeah, she's
right.
currently in
Okay.
H1B, but she's asking if it's better to move for an H4 EAD.
Right. Um, Sorry, just
Okay, I think there's a disconnect somehow, but we will surely get back to Prashanthi. I hope she's joining us very, very soon, folks out there. I just want to say, Shikha, stay with us. We are going to be very happy to give an answer to you. But also, I wanted to I'll tell you folks out there, wherever you have joined us from, you can even ask your questions directly to Prashanthi. You can send her
Hello?
an email.
I
Oh,
am back. So
Prashanthi's back.
sorry, Nipasa. I
Great.
just got, I went out of it accidentally. Sorry about that. So,
No problem.
can you hear me?
Yes, clearly.
Okay.
So,
Okay,
do you
great.
want to take up Shikha's? Yeah,
Yeah,
cool.
absolutely. Absolutely. So, is it better to move to H4 EAD or stay on H1? She's a software developer. As per the current market scenario, most of the companies are not sponsoring candidates. That's correct. Not difficult to get a H1. Is it better to move to H4 EAD or stay on H1? Is there any foreseen risk to move to H4 EAD from H1? Benefits of H1 over H4 EAD. So
Mhm.
both have their own advantages and disadvantages. The advantage, I mean, the advantage of the H1 is it's easy to file for a transfer or an extension. The time period is short to get a H1. You can file premium processing, so you could possibly transfer and you can work while the petition is still pending. So it's easier for you to um, move from one employer to another or to extend. I think I should say more extend your H1 rather than extending your H4 EAD because a H4 EAD takes longer to extend. The processing time is 12 months, 8 to 12 months, while a processing time for a H1 extension, if you do premium processing, is 30 days. So that's the biggest advantage of the H1 over the H4 EAD. But of course, if you extend your H4 and H4 EAD along with your spouse's H1, then you're looking at the same processing time. So then there is no real advantage of being on a H1. The only advantage is the processing time. The advantage of the H4 is there's no prevailing wage, so you don't have to worry about paying, the prevailing wage determined by the Department of Labor. There are no rules and regulations pertaining to H4 EAD. You just have to have an EAD approval. But for a H1, there are many loops that you have to go through. The employer has to go through. They have to uh, file an LCA. They have to make sure they're paying the wage as per the LCA. If they have to stay at the work location, if they're not at that same work location as per the LCA, approved LCA, then they have to file an amendment. There are constant FDNS visits and audits to ensure that you're following the law. So there are all these things that can be avoided if you're on a H4 EAD. So I would say, except for the processing time issue, a H4 EAD is and also it allows you to H4 EAD allows you to work for any employer at a drop of a hat. You can leave one employer and join another employer. You don't need to notify USCIS. You don't need to file a transfer like you have to on a H1. So
H1,
obviously
right.
that gives you much more flexibility on a H4 EAD. So I would say H4 EAD is better, except for the
Mhm.
processing time issue.
Cool.
And a H4
So,
EAD unfortunately is given only for 1 year at a time. So you have to,
oh,
the EAD is given for a year. The H4 is given for 3 years. So, you'd have to keep renewing it. So, that's the only thing. Um, if you have the EAD for 3 years, then you don't have to worry so much about the renewal part. But if it's given only for
mhm,
a year, then you have to
you
constantly
have to
worry
keep
about
renewing.
when to, file for the extension. So that's the only advantage for the H4 EAD.
Interesting. So, I hope Shikha, right? Yeah, Shikha. I hope Shikha, you've got your answer, and I hope that you can come up with a good solution for yourself. Go figure out, I would say. But thank you, Prashanthi, for taking that up for us. So let's move on. And if you could help us, how do you foresee the demand, for skilled workers in specific industries shaping the future of skilled immigration? Since we're talking about skilled immigration, the future of skilled immigration today, if you could just highlight this for us.
I think it's kind of what we discussed already with reference to what I foresee as the future. I think it's more of the same. Um,
Okay.
I not seeing any changes that will likely happen in the near future, and but you never know. I hope that we get surprised. But I think companies have become more savvy and individuals have become more savvy with reference to their rights, so they're actually filing lawsuits with courts, which they never used to do before. And the judicial system is in some ways helping make this immigration process smoother without any actual regulation or laws changing. The judicial system, to a certain extent, is helping to smooth out the process. So I see more litigation happening in the future, and that can result in things becoming easier for immigrants. Uh, but still, they're bound. The courts are bound by the law, so they have to stay within, the four walls of the law. So they can only interpret what the law is, and admonish USCIS if they go outside the boundaries of the law, but they can't rewrite the law. But within the power that they have, at least we can expect some fair interpretation of the law and some fair decisions, by courts, and that can ease the pain of a lot of immigrants and employers as well.
Right, Prashanti, right. So, well, talking about surprises, just out of the box, out of the topic question, do you like surprises or you don't like surprises, Prashanti?
I don't like surprises. I like the anticipation. So I like to know
Okay.
that I'm going on a vacation, right?
Mm-hmm.
To Bermuda or somewhere, rather than finding out the next day that I'm going. Then you miss the whole anticipation of it. So anticipation is
Right.
just as much fun as the actual event. So I think, yeah, for that reason I don't like surprises.
Okay. Okay. We'll take that. Anyway, before we go for a break, I wanted to ask you, based on your previous comment about AI, what do you think about the incorporation of AI into legislative directives? Any comments?
Um, AI can be useful and dangerous as well. So as long as it's
All right.
used properly, I think it's fine. Um, I'm not quite sure how AI would be used in laws. I mean, I think, but what I do know is that the laws haven't caught up to the use of AI, right? So we don't have enough laws that can control, curb, and kind of make sure AI is following the right path, guide, the AI process. I
Mm-hmm.
was just talking to somebody, an IT company, and they said that, they have the ability of creating my image as if I'm speaking, and you
Yeah.
can't tell the difference whether it's me or just AI speaking, right? So that's a little scary because then they can put
Scary.
out a video of
Yeah.
Prashanthi Reddy saying something on camera, and it may not actually be me saying it. So that's a scary
Right.
thing. I mean, I'm inconsequential, but if they do that with President Biden or Modi or some of the world leaders, then that can have consequences, right? So, AI should be used, but there should be many, many laws which that right now there are very few laws that are kind of driving it. AI, because technology is way ahead of, the process of making laws. I think we need to rein it back a little bit and sit tight so that the laws can catch up and we have a proper system, and structure whereby AI can be used.
True, true. I think we're still not so ready for, I mean, this is very overwhelming what has happened recently with AI. So I think we definitely need more laws, but we're still not so ready with all these. I think it's just overwhelming because it's made so many tasks so easy.
Right.
And for some of
And
us, we've become so overly dependent as well already.
correct. And in every department, including in the legislative body, everywhere AI can be used, but we have to use it with caution because it's not yet where it should be. So, I mean, if you type in your immigration question on AI, they might get it right. You might get the right answer, but you should always get it verified by an attorney, or if you're typing in a medical question, get it. Don't just think that AI will tell you is the truth and the only truth. It's the way it's you interpret it sometimes that will change things. And so if you're typing in a medical question and you say, okay, I have a cold, what medication should I take? And AI will pop something out. Don't go and take that medication. Uh, it's good for general knowledge to, find out about things, but always go to a doctor. Same way with an attorney, right? Make sure that, you follow the interpretation of the attorney because they have a wealth of knowledge where they
And
can actually
experience.
interpret. Yeah, an experience where they can interpret a sentence very different, really, from the way you would interpret it or AI would interpret it.
So true.
So I would be cautious about just following blindly, the information that the internet is spitting out.
So true. Anyway, folks, I think that is quite some information. Let's take all in as we go for a break, also. And before we go for the break, I wanted to tell you that you can even write directly to Attorney Prashanthi Reddy, and her contact details are on the screen. You can call her in the number 212-354-1010. Once again, I repeat, 212-354-1010. And you can even email her at prashanthi@reddyesq.com. And don't you also forget to visit her website, readyesq.com. All right, so let's go for a short break. And folks out there, don't go anywhere because we are definitely going to speak more about the future of skilled immigration. On Immigration and Jobs Talk Show, this is Nipasa Pradhan with attorney Prashanthi Reddy.
Consultant seeking a new opportunity? We offer job placement services for US citizens, green cards, EADs, and visa holders. We also sponsor various work visas like H1B, E3, TN, and green cards. 20 plus years of experience in the industry, exceptional employee benefits, highly rated by our employees, global presence with 200 plus recruiters and direct clients. Connect with us. Call us in the number 408 335 6444 or mail us at nipa@hireitpeople.com or visit our website www.hireitpeople.com.
Hello and welcome back, everyone, to Immigration and Jobs Talk Show. This is Nipasa Pradhan on another episode today with none other than immigration attorney Prashanthi Reddy. And I hope that you have been enjoying this conversation we've been having before the break and also the break. Today, friends, we are discussing about the future of skilled immigration and even exploring the forthcoming trends and prospects for skilled immigration in the United States. So, hopefully, so far, so good, this whole discussion. And thank you, folks, for your questions also, wherever you've joined us from. And currently, we are streaming live on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. And happy to have your questions and we're answering them. So, a big hello to Moy, MC Mike, and Gauravi, and also Mohan, Pavan, and everyone else. Romy, thank you so much. We will take up your questions. Just stay with us. And Prashanthi, thank you so much. I hope you're enjoying the session today with us.
I am.
Let's move on. Let's take up another question, and that is, what role do education and qualifications play in determining the eligibility for skilled immigration programs?
Um, it's a very broad question, but
Yes, it
we should break it up a little bit, maybe. Um, so yeah, that's what skilled immigrants. That's what it means. The whole category. When they say skilled immigrants, they're talking about highly qualified people who
right.
have a certain amount of education and certain number of years of experience. For the
I think we'll
green
make it
card,
easy. When we say education, let's take it academia, and when we say qualifications, maybe we can also take the experiences. I think that
correct?
way
Yeah,
it'll be easier.
right. Yeah. So, with reference to filing a green card, for example, the you have three categories: EB1, EB2, and EB3. The EB2 and EB3 category are completely based on the job requirements. That is, what does the job require? If the job requires a bachelor's degree and up to 2 years of experience, then you fall under the EB3 category. If the job requires a master's degree and up to 2 years of experience, or up to 3 years of experience, or a bachelor's degree and up to 5 years of experience, so advanced degree holders, that would come under the EB2 category. And there is a difference in the priority date between the EB2 and EB3, which means that if you qualify for the EB2 category, if your job qualifies, then you will get a green card faster, right? So that makes a huge difference to your education and experience. Also, with reference to the non-immigrant skilled uh, work visa categories, you have the H-1B category, and in a H-1B category, you don't qualify for a H-1B unless your job requires a bachelor's degree in a specific field. So if you're a software engineer, the job should require a bachelor's degree in computer science to qualify. So,
Yeah.
so as you can see, education plays a huge role in skilled immigration in the US. Also, with reference to other kind of work visas, such as the TN or the E3. The TN is for Canada, E3 is for Australia. For all of those categories, education is important, and it's important to have certain specific education depending on the job. And in the TN category, the USCIS has a list of job titles and the education required for each. So as long as you meet that, you can get a TN. So yeah, it plays an important role with reference to skill immigration.
Great, great. Thank you so much for taking that up. I think let's take up a viewer question right now. And this is from Pavan. Pavan is saying, I am a Canada citizen. I got selected for H1B CAP. Instead of waiting to work on H1B in October, can I come on TN visa? I heard it's very fast and an easy process. So a letter in October changed to H1B. That's what he's saying. So is that relevant?
I got selected for the H-1B cap instead of waiting to work on H-1 in October. Can I come in on the TN? I heard it's very fast and easy. Yeah, so he's asking, he's presently on a H1, or rather got selected for the H1, but obviously he needs to file the H1, get an approval, and he will be only able to come in October because that's when the fiscal year starts. So the H1 will, all the H1s for CAP have a start date of October 1. So I guess Pavan wants to know if he can come in before that on a TN. Absolutely, you can. And yes, the requirements are easier. You can, in a sense that the process is easier, it's shorter because you don't have to file anything with USCIS. You can just go to the port of entry with, the only thing that is required is the LCA. So go to the port of entry, show them that you qualify, prepare a petition, a letter. Your employer has to prepare a letter showing how you qualify, what your job is, and whether you meet the requirements under NAFTA. As I said, they have a list of jobs and the qualifications. So they have to list which job the person qualifies for and whether they have that qualification as per the list or not. And then this can be done at the port of entry. You don't have to go to the consulate to do it. You don't have to get a visa. You just can go to a port of entry and get an I-94 directly. You don't have to apply with USCIS. So TN is definitely a good option. And there are, again, less stringent requirements for a TN. Anything is less stringent than a H1. The H1 has the most stringent requirements when compared to any other non-immigrant work visa category, I think. So, yeah, go ahead and try for the TN.
All the best, Pavan. I think you should try for the TN then if you want it to be a faster process then. All right, so let's move on. Let's take up this one from YouTube. Anil Kumar asking, with tax discrepancies, issues more prevalent, and some states wouldn't accept tax amendments for past years, would it affect a non-immigrant worker later during their adjustment of status for green card?
Wouldn't accept tax amendments for the right. So, USCIS cares about what IRS cares about. So they want to make sure that you're following the law at any given point of time. So they look at what the law is with IRS. And this has an effect on you, especially when you're filing for the green card, when they ask for the tax returns, and even more so when you're filing for your citizenship. They want to make sure that you've paid all your taxes. So it will affect you. But how far back they go is up to them. Usually they don't go back further than 3 years. They ask for 3 years of tax return, unless something pops up um, on their website, which I don't know if they have a connection to the IRS website, but most likely not. But they'll definitely look at the last 3 years tax returns. So make sure that you're current at least for the last 3 years. And if you're able to correct your taxes for the previous years, I would suggest you do that as well. I know it's possible to do it. This is a tax issue. You should talk to your accountant. But by paying penalties, I know it's possible to go back further than 3 years and correct your tax return as well.
Cool, cool. And Prashanthi, actually, this was on your YouTube channel. So thank you to Anil Kumar. He posted on your channel this question.
Oh, great.
Great. So let's move on, Prashanthi. Let's take up another question. And I think this one should be from um, Mohan Das. Mohan is asking, how will the increasing focus on STEM education and innovation impact the future of skilled immigration? And what opportunities and challenges will this present for attorneys and their clients?
I don't know. You should maybe you'll know better than me because you're a techie person. I'm presuming you're a techie person because Uh, but yeah, that's a good question. All of us are thinking how AI will affect us and how it'll affect our businesses, how it'll affect our skill sets, right? There is a certain anxiety in the market as to who will be replaced by what, right? So, tech people, of course, are worried about, mundane jobs being replaced by AI. I heard AI can now write code. Um, so, that's why it's important to always evolve uh, yourself and evolve your skill set so that, you're always, there's always a job available for you and you can always make a difference. I think human beings will not be able to be replaced completely by AI. To a certain extent, certain mundane jobs can be
Sure.
replaced. So I wouldn't worry about too much. It's just that something to think about as to how you can continue to make a difference, even with AI. As an attorney, I'm certainly thinking about that. Um, so the question was, how will the increased focus on STEM education and innovation impact the future skilled immigrants? I mean, it's a new skill set and things always evolve with technology. And now the latest one is AI. And all the other languages, seem to be moot. All the Javas and the C++ and all that, .NET and all that. So AI has
Mhm.
replaced all of those. From the immigration point of view, what is the impact? Um, if the government sees that they are not um, able to, stay ahead of the curve with reference to AI, they'll definitely come up with some legislation where, they bring in more AI talent. Unless they're so boiled down by the politics of it that they don't see what is good for the country, which is also likely to happen because it's been happening. And that was towards, I think a little bit towards Romi's question as well.
Yes.
How do you attract high skilled labor to the US if you make the immigration laws so restrictive? And we know
Right.
that's all politics. It's not something that um, it's not something that is good for the country necessarily. Politicians don't always do what is good for the country. They do what they think is good uh, for them and for their ideologies, whatever it might be. But whatever, that's a different that's a question for a different day, and we can spend an entire hour talking about it. How broken the
It'll never
immigration
end.
system is. Yeah, it'll never end. So you know, it's difficult to say what the change will be or what will happen eventually, but definitely I think, you know, for example, during the Y2K movement, right? When Y2K was happening, USCIS, I mean, really opened the doors, and the US government opened the doors to, you know, computer people, to IT people. And that's when you saw that big inflow of software developers and other IT people into
Right.
the US, and mostly Indian nationals. That was
Right.
a time when there was a big, you know, they opened the gates and there was a big inflow of Indian nationals into the US. So if something like that happens again, then they will need AI people. Then they might open the gates again, and it's very easy for them to come up with new legislation, right? It's just a question of the political will, whether it's there or not.
True.
And there are a lot of things that can be done through executive orders as well. So, you know, let's wait and see where this takes us. But if the United States doesn't change its immigration policies, for sure they will not be competitive with AI, and other countries will, you know, surge ahead, and then, you know, America will just have to will have to stay in the background. So let's see what happens if the politicians realize that or not.
That too, and you never know what can happen. So let's just stay open-minded and accept whatever comes. And let's stay, yes, hopeful for magic like Y2K and everything else. I mean, we even had COVID when we thought that, we are going to be stuck up in our homes, but see where we are now, traveling again and hoping to travel to America also to get another job and even a green card there. So why not? Anything can happen. Let's move
Correct.
on, Prashanthi. I got this question from Prashant on YouTube asking, I have my H1B petition filed in 2014 and it's expired. Can I renew it? What's the procedure? Okay.
Uh, well, it's expired. Where are you, Prashant? Are you in the US and you're out of status? I think you might be outside the country, and this is to Nipasa's point earlier that you should say where you are and give more information about yourself and your posting a question. But let's just presume that you're out of the country. Your H1 has petition is expired. It doesn't really matter. You're not renewing it. You're pretty much, if you're out of the country, filing a new H1B petition, and you would be cap exempt. I know it's been 10 years since you had the previous H1, so depending on how they interpret it, if they interpret it in a stricter way, they might say that you're not cap exempt because it was not within the last 6 years. But if they choose to interpret it in a more liberal way, which they seem to be doing presently, you might still be cap exempt. So you can just file your H1 consular processing through any employer that you want to file using your previous H1, stating in your petition that you're cap exempt. Of course, for that, you need a job. You need a employer that's willing to file that petition.
Right. And I think this year, I mean, the lottery is already over, but I think you should look out for different options, Prashant. Won't you recommend, Prashanthi?
Well, as you said, yeah, registration is done. You can wait for next year, or you could try coming in. I mean, there are very few work visa options for Indian nationals. There are more. So Canada has a TI and Australia has E3. But you could try for an O1 if you're an extraordinary ability, person of an extraordinary ability. Or you could try for an L1, L1B, or an L1A if you qualify, and if your employer qualifies to file that kind of a petition. So, yeah, there could be some options.
Cool. So, Prashant, anyway, I think as Prashanthi mentioned, you could tell us where you're located, and probably we could give you better answers. And you can even have more, if you have more questions, just drop them here. We will be happy to take them up for you. All right, let's move on to Charan. Charan is asking, there are there are actually two questions. What legal and policy reforms would you propose to strike a balance between the need for skilled immigration to drive economic growth and innovation, while also addressing concerns around national security, public benefit, and the impact on domestic workers? And how would you navigate the political and practical challenges of implementing such reforms in the current immigration landscape? Pretty long.
Yeah,
So,
and he's well thought out question. Uh,
very well.
so yes, there's always tug of war between advocates, pro immigration advocates, and advocates who are against immigration. And there's always been over the years since America was created as a country. There's always been that pull and push. Um, we know that America is a land of immigrants, right? The original native Indian settlers are nowhere to be seen right now. They've all
Mhm.
been taken over by immigrants. Um, it's just a matter of who immigrated first and who is immigrating later, right? So everybody has immigrated at some point within the last, the few hundred years since the 1800s. Um, so it's just the newer immigrants trying to find a place and the older immigrants not wanting the new immigrants to come into the country. So it's important to look at the history, right? Unlike other countries where immigration has not been um, its founding force, in the US immigration has been what has made America what it is. The modern America is based on immigrants. It's a land of immigrants, but at the same time it is important to ensure that people who are already here, and the US citizens and permanent residents,
Mhm.
don't lose their jobs to companies who are unscrupulously getting cheap labor from outside the country. You don't want that also. You want a certain standard to be maintained. Yes, we know it's a corporate economy, and uh, in a corporate world, in a world like this, where it's not a social welfare kind of state. Um, it's always competitive, so whatever makes sense for competition must win. But at the same time, even though we believe in that, it has to be done um, in a more in a manner which is responsible. So there has to be some responsible kind of corporate economy, so which means that make sure that there's a good living wage for people who are here already in the US, uh, and make sure that the competition coming from outside the country doesn't in any way negate that, or in any way harm the people that are already in the US and
Mhm.
have jobs here, right? And I think the present laws, the way the laws are, already make sure of that. They already have so many checks and balances with reference to the H1, with reference to the green card, how to file a green card for a person. You have to put an advertisement in the newspaper. You have to make sure that there's no other qualified US citizen for the job. So there are a lot of restrictions and laws in place to ensure that people here don't lose their jobs.
Right.
It's what is happening instead is that we don't have enough qualified US citizens, especially in the technology field and in the healthcare field. That's just a fact, because people are not now recently kids are going into computer science, and I know a lot of them are doing a computer science major. But
Mhm.
even today, because in the healthcare world, for example, there are not that many people who are studying medicine because it's expensive to study medicine in the US, right? And you'll be left with a loan of several $100,000, maybe 300 to $400,000, and by the time you finish, so it doesn't make sense to study medicine in the US. So people are not doing it. So what happens then with all the hospitals? We've seen during COVID there was so much shortage with reference to doctors and nurses. So then you have to open that up then to foreign medical graduates or to foreign nurses, so that the country gets what it needs, right?
Mhm.
If you're not able to grow, your doctors and your nurses and your engineers here, then you have to get them from outside the country, or you have to then jobs will just go out of the country, which they've been doing, which has been happening, which is better. Would you rather get immigrants into the country who pay taxes and improve the economy, or would you rather the entire job goes to Mexico or India and then US gets no benefit from it? So it's a very simple, in my mind at least, it's a very simple formula, and
Mhm.
it's very easy to place safeguards, and safeguards are already there. They have to be implemented properly. And as you know, then you just keep opening and closing the gates as per your need, right? Right now, there is a need for tech people, there is a need for doctors. So why don't you just open the H1B numbers up and increase the numbers as and when you need them and close them when you don't need them? It has to be, there has to be a way of doing this so that it doesn't have to go through, the Congress every time something has to be changed. So, I mean, I think by finding these ways of doing this, I think you can definitely improve the economy, improve jobs, and stay ahead of the curve.
Absolutely. And I think a country's economy are also built on taxes. So that is why this is the case. So also, I mean, talking about land of immigrations, land of immigrants, Prashanthi, totally relatable because I mean, watching American soaps, it can only tell us that people from across the globe are out there in America and they're living there and working in different fields of work and are doing great also. So uh, the future of skilled immigration, friends out there, doesn't end anywhere. It still is going on. And I'm sure there's so many questions out there that you have posted. Hopefully, Prashanthi, you can make time. Or maybe we can still continue talking about this topic in the coming episode. Let's discuss on that for sure. But I think it's time, to wrap up our show for today. Already an hour down. And Prashanthi, maybe if you have an end note to wrap up our show for today before we go.
I just wanted to appreciate the audience as usual that has joined the show, and you can see that their questions, they were so thoughtful, and they're so aware of what is happening around them. And it's these kind of thoughtful questions and discussion that maybe can bring about change. At least it's the first step to bring about change.
Sure. Sure. Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you from folks out there as well. I can see Shushan saying thank you, Moin saying insightful. So I'll say a big thank you from Immigration and Jobs Talk Show as well to you, Prashanthi, for joining us in today's episode and making this episode also a very, very enlightening one. Thank you once again for joining us.
Thank you.
Have a great day. And folks, also, wherever you joined us from, thank you so much for joining in. And don't forget to keep posting your comments if you're watching us after the stream. And you can even get in touch with me. I'm available in the number 408 335 6444. You can even WhatsApp me in the same number. It's displayed on the screen. You can note it down 408 335 6444. And my email address is nipa@hireITPeople.com. And also, friends out there, if you're looking for project placement, green cards, EADs, don't forget to reach out to us. Yes, you can also check out our website, www.hireitpeople.com. And with this, we'll wrap up this webinar. But I'll just tell you that I'm going to join you very, very soon, actually, in just an hour again with another webinar. And stay tuned, okay? Don't go anywhere. Stay with us. This is Nipasa Pradhan signing off for now from Immigration and Jobs Talk Show. Bye bye.